What if the book that changed the world was more than just a book? The Quran's full story takes you on a journey from the deserts of ancient Arabia to the hearts of billions today. Discover how divine words were revealed to a man who couldn't read, how they were preserved through memory and miracle, and how they shaped empires, art, and entire civilizations. This is the untold origin, the powerful revelation, and the enduring legacy of the Quran, a story of faith, fire, and timeless truth. Stay tuned as we uncover the sacred scroll that shook the world, a book that changed the course of history. The Quran is more than a religious text. For over 1,400 years, it has served as the spiritual compass of Muslims around the world, a foundation for legal systems, a wellspring of intellectual inquiry, and a work of linguistic and poetic brilliance. Believed by Muslims to be the literal word of God, Allah, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad over 23 years, the Quran story is both divine and deeply human. It is a story of revelation under persecution, of preservation through memory and writing, and of influence that has shaped civilizations. To fully appreciate the Quran's power, we must journey back to its origins, trace the path of its revelation, and explore the legacy it continues to forge today. 1. Arabia before the Quran. Before the Quran's revelation, the Arabian Peninsula was home to a rich oral tradition. The Arabs of the 6th and 7th centuries CE were renowned for their poetry and storytelling. Yet despite this cultural depth, the region was religiously fragmented. Paganism was widespread, with tribes worshipping various deities, often housed in shrines like the Kaaba in Mecca. Judaism and Christianity had made inroads, but the Arabian Peninsula remained largely polytheistic. It was in this context, spiritually restless, tribally divided, and morally unstable, that the Quran would emerge as a radical and transformative force. 2. The beginning of revelation. Muhammad ibn Abdullah, born in Mecca in 570 CE, was known among his people as Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Though illiterate, he was spiritually, reflective, and morally upright. At age 40, he began retreating to the cave of Hira to meditate. In 610 CE, during one of these retreats, the angel Gabriel, appeared to him with a command, Iqra, recite. This moment marked the first verses of the Quran, later recorded in Surah Al-Alaq. Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging clot. Quran 96:1-2. This experience shook Muhammad to his core. At first he feared he had gone mad, but with support from his wife Khadija and confirmation from her cousin Waraka ibn Nawfal, a Christian scholar, Muhammad came to accept his role as a prophet and messenger. 3. Gradual revelation over 23 years. Unlike other scriptures revealed at once, the Quran came down gradually, responding to the changing circumstances of the prophet's life and his community. From 610 to 632 CE, verses were revealed to address spiritual, moral, social, and legal issues. Meccan period 610 to 622 CE early revelations focused on monotheism, the day of judgment, justice for the oppressed, and the moral responsibility of humanity. These chapters are poetic, powerful, and universal in their tone. Medinan period 622 to 632 CE after the Hijra migration. To Medina, revelations began addressing community law, warfare, diplomacy, and relations between Muslims and other groups. This contextual nature of revelation is central to understanding how the Quran served both as guidance and legislation. 4. Memorization and oral tradition. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Quran is how it was preserved. Though Muhammad was illiterate, he had an astonishing memory and would recite each new revelation to his companions. These companions would memorize the verses word for word and recite them in prayer, daily life, and communal gatherings. This oral tradition became a central feature of Islamic life. Those who memorized the entire Qur'an were called singular, fi. Even today, millions of Muslims around the world commit the Qur'an to memory, continuing this chain of oral transmission. 5. Writing down the revelation. Although memorization was the primary means of preservation, Muhammad also had scribes who wrote down the verses. Materials used included parchment, bones, palm leaves, and leather. The Prophet would dictate not only the words, but also the placement of each verse in its appropriate chapter, surah. However, no single-bound copy existed during Muhammad's life. The Quran was preserved across memory and scattered writings, until historical events made a complete compilation essential. 6. Compilation after the Prophet's death. When Muhammad passed away in 632 CE, the community was left with the task of preserving his teachings. During the Battle of Yamama, many memorizers of the Quran were killed, raising fears that the Quran could be lost if not written down in one unified text. Abu Bakr's compilation. The first caliph Abu Bakr tasked Zayd ibn Thabit, one of Muhammad's chief scribes, to collect the Quran into a single manuscript. This compilation involved verifying verses with multiple sources, both oral and written. Uthman's standardization. By the time of the third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, Islam had spread across regions where Arabic was spoken with different dialects. Disputes arose over how the Quran should be recited. Uthman commissioned a standardized version of the Quran based on the Qurayshi dialect, the dialect of the Prophet. He distributed these copies to major cities and destroyed other variant texts to prevent confusion. This Uthmanic Codex remains the foundation for every Quranic manuscript today. 7. The structure of the Quran. The Quran is composed of 114 chapters, surahs, over 6,000 verses, ayahs. Unlike many books, it is not organized chronologically. Instead, surahs are generally ordered by length. Longer chapters appear first, followed by shorter ones. Every chapter, except Surah At-Tawbah, begins with Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Themes covered include monotheism and divine unity, stories of past prophets like Moses, Jesus, and Noah, laws regarding marriage, commerce, war, and justice, morality, ethics, and spiritual reflection, warnings to disbelievers and promises to the righteous. 8. The language and style of the Quran. The Quran's literary style is one of its most striking features. Written in classical Arabic, it blends prose and poetry in a way that is considered inimitable. This is known as the Ijaz al-Quran, the idea that no human being could ever produce something like it. The Quran often uses parallelism and repetition, rhetorical questions, metaphors and allegories, direct divine speech, we, as a majestic plural for God. To the Arabs of the 7th century, masters of poetry, the Quran was so unmatched in beauty and impact that many embraced Islam after hearing just a few verses. 9. The science of interpretation, tafsir. Because of its depth and complexity, the Quran gave rise to an entire discipline, tafsir, or Quranic exegesis. Tafsir explains the meanings of verses, the context of revelation, asbab al-nuzul, linguistic nuances, and how to apply the text to life. Famous early scholars of tafsir include Ibn Abbas, a cousin of the Prophet, Al-Tabari, who compiled one of the earliest and most comprehensive tafsir works, Al-Qurtubi, and Ibn Kathir, whose commentaries are still widely read. There are also Sufi, Shari'i, and philosophical tafsirs, offering varied insights based on spiritual, legal, or rationalist approaches. 10. Preservation and consistency. One of the most extraordinary aspects of the Qur'an is its unaltered preservation. Unlike other ancient texts, the Qur'an exists in exactly the same form today as it did 1,400 years ago, letter for letter, word for word, in its original language. This is due to oral memorization across generations, standardized text under Uthman, continuous recitation in daily prayers. Even with translations in every major language, only the Arabic Qur'an is considered the literal word of God. Translations are seen as interpretations of meaning. 11. Global influence and legacy. The Qur'an is not just a religious book, it is a civilizational force. Its impact can be seen in every aspect of Muslim life. Law and politics. The foundation of Islamic law, Sharia, is based on the Qur'an along with the Prophet's traditions, Hadith. Science and philosophy. During the Islamic Golden Age, Quranic ideas inspired advances in medicine, astronomy, and mathematics. Art and calligraphy. Quranic verses are inscribed on mosques, palaces, and manuscripts. Arabic calligraphy flourished as a sacred art. Social justice. The Qur'an promoted rights for women, orphans, the poor, and slaves, centuries ahead of its time. Even today, the Qur'an influences debates on ethics, governance, economics, and human rights in Muslim societies and beyond. 12. The Qur'an in the modern world. In the digital age, the Qur'an is more accessible than ever. Apps, audio recordings, and online platforms allow millions to read, listen, and reflect on the text daily. Quranic study continues to thrive in universities, mosques, and homes across the globe. Yet, the Qur'an also faces scrutiny, misinterpretation, and politicization, particularly in non-Muslim societies, where it is often misunderstood. Despite this, its spiritual and moral power remains undiminished. To Muslims, the Qur'an is a living book, not just recited, but felt, lived, and acted upon. Its role is not to sit on a shelf, but to shape the heart, the home, and the world. The breath of revelation still echoes. The Qur'an is not just a book. To Muslims, it is the book, a living, breathing legacy of divine wisdom that transformed not only a people, but the very arc of human civilization. Born in the silence of a cave, nurtured by memory, preserved through centuries, and recited daily by millions, the Qur'an is more than sacred scripture. It is a force, a guide, a living thread that connects heaven to earth, ancient Arabia to the modern world, the solitary seeker to the global ummah. This is the story of that transformation, a journey from scattered tribes to spiritual unity, from oral verses to a written miracle, from historical moment to timeless presence. This is the living legacy of the Qur'an. 1. The womb of revelation, Mecca and the age of ignorance. Before the Qur'an was revealed, the Arabian Peninsula was a land of harsh deserts, vibrant poetry, tribal conflicts, and religious fragmentation. Known in Islamic tradition as the Age of Ignorance, Jahiliyyah, it was not a time without culture or knowledge, but one without divine unity. Mecca was a bustling center of commerce and pilgrimage, home to the Kaaba, a sacred site housing idols of various deities. Amid this world, Muhammad ibn Abdullah lived a life of quiet reflection. Known for his honesty, he rejected the injustice, spiritual emptiness, and moral decay around him. It was during one of his meditative retreats in the cave of Hira that the silence shattered, and history changed. 2. The first light, a voice in the cave. At age 40, Muhammad received his first revelation. The angel Gabriel appeared to him, commanding him to recite. Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging clot. Quran 96:1-2. These were not just words, they were a spark, a signal that the divine was re-entering history, not through thunder or empire, but through the trembling lips of an unlettered man. Muhammad was terrified, but supported by his wife Khadijah and guided by divine reassurance, he accepted the mission. Thus began a 23-year journey of revelation, resistance, and revolution. 3. A revelation in real time. Unlike many other scriptures, the Quran was revealed progressively, over 2 decades. It didn't descend as a single book, but as living guidance, responding to real events, questions, and crises. This made it both deeply contextual and timeless. Meccan verses focused on spiritual awakening, monotheism, resurrection, the afterlife, and social justice. Medinan verses dealt with practical matters, laws, warfare, community ethics, and religious pluralism. This dual nature, universal and particular, gave the Quran the ability to guide a fledgling community while echoing truths across generations. 4. From memory to manuscript. Preservation in action. The Quran's legacy rests on its unparalleled preservation. Though the Prophet Muhammad was illiterate, he had a prodigious memory and a circle of companions who memorized every verse as it was revealed. These memorizers became walking Qurans, reciting, teaching, and embodying its message. At the same time, scribes recorded revelations on parchment, bones, palm leaves, and leather. Yet during Muhammad's lifetime, the Quran remained a dynamic, oral textual tradition. The Prophet would regularly instruct where each verse belonged in which chapter, preserving both content and structure under divine guidance. The Quran was being lived long before it was bound. 5. Crisis and compilation, safeguarding the message. After Muhammad's death in 632 CE, the Muslim community faced the challenge of safeguarding the Quran's integrity. During the Battle of Yamama, many were killed. Alarmed by the potential loss of the Quran, the first Caliph Abu Bakr commissioned Zayd ibn Thabit, one of Muhammad's scribes, to compile the Quran into a single manuscript. This copy remained with Abu Bakr, then with Caliph Umar, and eventually with his daughter Hafsa. Under Caliph Uthman ibn Affan, as Islam expanded and dialectical differences in recitation emerged, Uthman ordered the production of a standardized codex. Copies were distributed to major Islamic centers, and variant texts were destroyed to ensure unity. This version, the Uthmanic Codex, is the foundation of the Quran we have today. 6. The structure of divine order. The Quran consists of 114 chapters, surahs, each with its own theme and tone. It contains over 6,000 verses, ayahs, and is arranged not chronologically, but by divine instruction, often from longest to shortest chapters. The Quran begins with Surah Al-Fatiha, a 7-verse prayer that serves as the opening of the book and the heart of Muslim daily prayer. It ends with Surah An-Nas, a short plea for divine protection. Between these bookends, the Quran unfolds like a cosmic conversation, sometimes commanding, sometimes comforting, sometimes mysterious. Every chapter, except one, begins with the phrase, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. 7. Language of the divine, the miracle of Arabic. The Quran was revealed in classical Arabic, a language already rich in poetry, oration, and complexity. Yet the Quran's language stood apart. Even the greatest Arab poets of the time were stunned by its rhythm, depth, and structure. Muslims believe this is part of the Quran's miraculous nature. Ijaz al-Quran, it cannot be imitated, surpassed, or equaled. Its blend of metaphor, rhetorical question, repetition, and prophecy moves the listener, whether or not they understand the words. Even today, the sound of Quranic recitation, known as tajweed, is revered as both a spiritual and artistic form. 8. Interpretation and the art of understanding. With its layered meanings, the Quran invited reflection, debate, and interpretation. This gave birth to the science of tafsir exegesis, which sought to explain the Quran's meanings, context of revelation, asbab al-nuzul, and implications. Early scholars like Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, and Al-Tabari laid foundational commentaries. Later thinkers, from Sufi mystics like Rumi to legal scholars like Al-Shafi'i, approached the text through different lenses. Tafsir can be linguistic, legal, mystical, or rational, but all stem from the belief that the Quran has infinite depth. As the Quran itself says, "Do they not reflect upon the Quran? If it had been from other than God, they would have found much contradiction in it." Quran 4 hours, 82 minutes. 9. Living with the Quran. Practice and presence. The Quran is not merely read, it is lived. Muslims engage with it through prayer, salah, reciting verses multiple times a day. Study, from informal gatherings to global institutions. Memorization, children and adults commit it to heart. Legal systems. Many Islamic laws stem from Quranic principles. Social justice. The Quran's calls for caring for the orphan, the poor, and the oppressed resonate across time. Its guidance permeates personal conduct, family life, governance, and ethics. The Quran is both a mirror for the soul and a map for the community. 10. Global reach. A book without borders. From the sands of Arabia, the Quran has reached every corner of the globe. It has been translated into over 100 languages, though the Arabic version remains the only text considered the literal Quran. Despite cultural, linguistic, and historical differences, Muslims around the world recite the exact same verses. A child in Jakarta, a farmer in Nigeria, and a scholar in Cairo may sound different, but the words are the same. This universality is part of the Quran's living legacy, a thread uniting believers across race, class, and geography. 11. A sacred legacy in the modern age. Today, the Quran faces both reverence and resistance. In many parts of the world, it is misunderstood, misquoted, or even weaponized. But it is also studied in universities, defended in courts, and cherished in homes. Modern technologies, apps, websites, digital tafsir platforms have brought the Quran to smartphones and classrooms. Audio recordings of world-renowned reciters inspired new generations. AI is now being used to help teach and analyze Quranic grammar. Yet despite the modern tools, the essence remains the same. Recite, reflect, and live by it. 12. A book that reads you. Perhaps the greatest power of the Quran is not just that it speaks, but that it listens. Many Muslims say that the Quran answers questions in their hearts, that a random verse they open resonates with their situation. As the Quran says, "Indeed, this Quran guides to that which is most just and right." Quran 17:9. It doesn't just inform, it transforms. It doesn't just teach, it heals. It isn't merely recited, it reads you back. The Quran lives on. The full story of the Quran is a story of light emerging from darkness, of tribes becoming a united ummah, of confusion giving way to clarity, of a voice from a cave echoing through time, unbroken, unchanged. Its verses were revealed in the stillness of night and in the chaos of battle. They comforted the oppressed, challenged the powerful, and promised hope to the hopeless. And today, the Quran is still recited with love, written with care, memorized with devotion, and lived with purpose. This is not just the history of a book. It is the legacy of a living revelation, a divine message that entered time not to fade, but to remain. a living legacy forever, continues to shape hearts and nations across time. From its divine origins to its preservation and global impact, the Quran remains unmatched in power and purpose. If this journey moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into sacred texts and hidden histories. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What surprised you most about the Quran's legacy? Until next time, keep seeking truth, questioning deeply, and honoring the words that shape the world. Peace be upon you all.